This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson. Excited to be here with you today and really excited about this topic. We've got the Mad Wizard, the credit messiah, Mr. Merrill Chandler, joining us on for his monthly episode with us here. And we are so honored to have you as always, Merrill. How's it going today, man?
I'm doing really well. We got great things happening. COVID is treating us right because I guess if you're the guy who is running the bell to tell people what to do to protect themselves from the hurricane that's coming, you might be a very popular guy. So
somebody's riding on their horse with a bell, dressed as Paul Revere. The foreclosures are coming. The foreclosures are coming. COVID is coming. COVID is coming.
Yeah, we are, because we are literally stopping people from going into, or how to manage the pre-foreclosure process with their lenders, how to actually navigate and negotiate deferments better. We actually have a way to scripts and how to navigate not getting your credit lines and credit card limits lowered. Mm-hmm. Our clients or students are literally they're raising limits in the middle of COVID, right? We're at over $3 million in client fundings so far this month.
Wow.
I mean, that everybody, so it's working, and we're the great storm warning, right? Say, here's how to protect. So it's been wonderful. And what we've got for your listeners today, I think it kicks ass. This is awesome.
Yeah. So what we thought we would do is, there's obviously a variety of issues that we deal with borrowers and different exit strategies in the note business. Obviously buying a note at a discount from usually somebody who hasn't been paying for a while, and then working through the different exit strategies, the forbearance, the short sales, the loan assumptions, the foreclosures, whatever it be. And so Merrill and I thought we'd break down kind of how the opposite side, how it affects the borrower in good and bad, so that as A, you're talking with your borrowers, or B, you have your third party, your asset manager, your vendor, this is something to educate them on, as is like, listen, if you do this, this will help you in the long term. Or if you don't do this, this will affect you in the long term. So yeah, we thought we'd roll it up with that. What do you think? Huh?
I think it's a great idea. And so there's what happens to your borrower, the person who is residing in your new property, and we can talk about strategies to protect you against them in that same scenario, right? If you're looking for somebody to assume the loan, for example, how you get to be the underwriter, and what things to watch for to see if they're going to be legitimately capable of doing some of these things with you. So I think fire away, man. This is a great topic.
So we all know that if people go out and to originate a loan, lenders will look at your mortgage history, especially if you're refinancing or buying a new home. And they'll sometimes allow a 1 or 2 missed payments in a 24-month period, as long as you've made it up, to be late once or twice, right? What does one missed payment in a 24 period roughly affect somebody's fundability or the credit scores, Merrill?
Ultimately, your credit score, so FICO calculates it in kind of an either or, which means that if you have one 30-day late, and another 30-day late, it equals one 60-day late. So it aggregates the lateness. Anything greater than 30-day late, 60-day late is called I want to make sure I get the language right, is a serious delinquency. So that can be in the same 24-month look-back period. Many of your listeners already are boot campers or what are part of my tribe as well.
Yep.
But that 24-month look-back period, it can be 2 30s, which equal 60, or 160, but no other 30s or anything else. So anything above that, a third 30 or a 30 that turns into a 60 turns into a 90. Any of those are serious delinquencies. So, and the first delinquency is going to drop you. Approximately 50 to 100 points, depending on where you are on the credit score pyramid. The lower you are on the pyramid, the greater the negative effect. The higher on the pyramid, the less impact it has, because you've got all this proof that you're an awesome, awesome borrower. It doesn't impact you as much. And opposite of that, or contrarily, that if you get too high, like you're in the 830, 820s, 830s, 850s, and you go down, then that's like falling off a cliff. So the sweet spot is under 800, but above 760. If you're going to, I'm actually telling them how to be late. If you're going to be late, don't be over 800, because that takes even longer to recuperate. And I actually have a podcast about mortgage recoup times. I'll have Sky find that, and we can drop that in a link for your bonus material. Sky, will you do that? But one of our podcasts is how to recoup from a late mortgage. But the bottom line is, it's 50 to 100 points, but the second one doesn't harm as much, because they're giving you that grace of that 60 days. But the second you hit that 90 days, that third payment or that 90 days, then it's another tier down of another 50 to 100 points. You can be in 800 and be at 610 in the second you do that double tier drop. So whether it's your property or somebody else's late on it, that's the serious negative impact. And we'll give you that link, because it's an awesome podcast.
So basically that's good to know. So somebody who's like, we're not looking at notes really until they're at least beyond 90 days in default.
Correct.
And so their FICO score, no matter where it was, is going to be down in the 400s or the 500s, like we see.
Correct. It'll likely be under 600.
Yep, exactly. So let's talk about, because the next kind of phase, what's happened with a lot of people versus going late, is that they go to a forbearance agreement.
Correct.
And how is that affecting their scores right now?
So this is really important, you guys, for you as a note buyer real estate investor, not just for the paper you're picking up. All the forbearance agreements allow up to 12 months so far. We don't know if COVID continues, they may push it out, but right now it's 2 6-month periods, right? There's a 6 month, and then a review, a needs assessment, and then another 6 might be possible before they actually formally start the notice of default and foreclosure process. The problem is that during that forbearance, they've never done this before, no other natural disaster anywhere else, but the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau suspended the truth in reporting law sections of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. They said, we're going to report it and it doesn't have to be true. So that's why they're saying that paid is agreed, current. A lie when it comes to the factual terms of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, but they suspended the truth in reporting, right?
Yeah, I had to verify this, because I just looked at a portfolio over the last 2 weeks that said that 6-month forbearance and current, not, and I'm like, what? You know?
So now here's the other thing. When you get down into the consumer disclosure version or the 24-month look back period of those, every lender I've seen so far will say they just play dirty. Instead of just being current, it's current, but natural disaster relief is the notation. And the natural disaster relief is basically the crutch they rely on, but FICO and lender software can now tag it and devalue it, because it doesn't just say current, but they're going to devalue it because if the language is identical, it's required by statute. So if they're in their little algorithms, all they have to do is say current, but if it has this, reduced by 20%, reduced by 40%. So that's where they look like they're being heroes, but if your loan says if it says current due to national disaster, you're not getting all the good juju. So I encourage my clients to actually negotiate if they're going to take, before they approve a forbearance agreement, before they take it out, they want, and this is worth the price of admission, guys, all by itself. You guys want to say, I want this to say current, but not because of national disaster. Make sure that notation is not added, and then it'll be straight up paid as agreed. But the second that they can use that national disaster thing, then what looks like everybody trying to be heroes is just them giving a new way to filter the data and lower your fundability. So that one's a big one.
I'd forgotten about that, because that current due to national disasters, I have seen that in the past when we saw what happened in New Orleans, years ago, totally. And then in New Jersey with Katrina Rita and all that stuff. We saw that pop up where they delayed things 6 months. A lot of people get back on.
Now it's nationwide.
I know, it's crazy.
And so that is a devaluation. Anytime that they're going to put a comment on there, it's like people who go to a debt consolidation house, where they negotiate it all down, but it says in credit counseling. The second it says in credit counseling, that's the equivalent of having a homegrown Chapter 13. You're dropped by literally 75 to 100 points. So be careful, guys. That's why these podcasts are so valuable. That's why Scott's literally got the pulse of what's going on out there, is that you need to know that things are possible if you know the right questions to ask and what answers you're looking for. So bravo, Scott.
Hey, no problem. And the reason I bring this up is because our servicing companies that we have, and I use, we've had Madison Management on here before, but not every loan servicing company reports to all three bureaus. Like Madison, who we work with, they report directly to TransUnion. So when we had people calling in asking for forbearance agreements, that was one of the things that we had to just let our servicer know, hey, we're doing a forbearance agreement, and kind of working that aspect as well with, okay, how do we really report it?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Current
what goes on. Current subject to.
Right? Exactly.
National disaster.
So let's talk. Let's move it down a little bit. We'll get to bankruptcies in a second here, but let's say, we get the borrowers on the phone and they want to start paying, but they're still 6 months behind their mortgage. Their mortgage, the FICO scores have dropped off because 6 months.
You're right.
Right. But they want to get back on track, so we start reporting them
the servicer.
Reporting them to the servicer, starting making payments, but still showing 6 months behind. What does that kind of show?
Okay, so the reporting, and let's pretend that it's all three bureaus, so we don't have to play with which bureaus. Let's say the servicer is reporting to all three bureaus. If that is the case, then what's gonna happen is the amount of the balance counts against you, and how far behind, what the catch-up is. It isn't one of because the more money, the more egregious the error, right? If you've got a $50,000 house, I'm just tossing numbers. You have a $50,000 house. It's $169 for the mortgage, and you're only behind, and you're behind 6 months, and so it's what, $800 behind or $1,000 behind. That is completely different than being $70,000 behind because your payment is $8,000, right? So the amount of the actual gross amount of arrearage is worse the more you owe, because there is this, and it's just total Americanisms. It's not prejudice per se, but it evaluates that an $8,000 payment, you have more means to handle your business than somebody who's paying $169 for a business. It kind of prejudices against the more wealthy you are, handle your business, right? You should. Even though we tend to be a debt nation and we get into debt to the degree we make money, right? So we spend every dime plus one than we earn. But point is that so the amount of the debt weighs in against you. the actual arrearage, and then how many, if you, in this case, you're 6 months, behind, then the question is, are you, as the giving the deal for the servicer, are you re-amortizing the loan? Because here's what I would, if you were the servicer and I was coaching my client on how to work with you, I would say, totally get it. What if we re-amortize the loan, pull it in, and then I can go paid as agreed because it's brand new with you. I want to do right by you. Now I only get one shot at that, the grace of the funding gods, but that's what I would coach my team to tell you is, hey, why don't we just reset and give me a shot at this. Now I know you want the money back, but what and then add a bonus amount for, it's a $1,500 payment, but I'm going to pay $1,700 until the arrearage is done. The idea that I'm coaching my clients and I'm coaching your people to do is to ways in which you can show goodwill to your borrowers and lean in heavily without creating animosity because they just got out of a horrible lender-borrower relationship. How do you become the hero? And of course, we want to capture as much as we can, but how much easier it is to speak to a borrower, to one of your tenants or one of your mortgagees, how much easier it is to say, you owe me a arrearage versus here's your payment, which will be reduced when we catch up. But the good news is what's being reported is on time.
That's good stuff. Now,
and that's how you make the deal with them. I will report your mortgage with me as paid as agreed if you will do it this way. And then you cash forward a couple $100, $300 a month or whatever until you catch up that arrearage, but make the note for the whole amount. By the way, if you do it that way, they would that extra money towards the note would actually reduce the balance faster than the timeline, which, as we know from the boot camp, actually gives you more juice with future lenders because you're at 95% utilization when you should be at 97% in the pay down slope. And as long as you're ahead of the curve, you look great to future lenders, and that's another benefit you can tell your borrower or your students.
So would it be advantageous if somebody's on a forbearance plan where they do own 6 and 9 months, instead of just going and paying a lump sum to get paid up on it, to recast the loan? So let's say they owe $9,000. I'll give you a great example from a loan example. A borrower was $9,000 behind, basically $1,500 a month. 6 months, basically $9,000. Instead of paying the $9,000 and still being where he was, would have make more sense for them to recast the loan and add the $9,000 to the back amount of the loan, and then paying the $9,000 now, reducing the LTV down.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because that first payment, let's say they've got the $9,000, I would still recast the loan because the big benefit you can give, and now speaking directly to your listeners, the big benefit, you guys, that you can give your borrower is I'm going to get you ahead of the payment times curve, right? The slope. If you can get, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the boot camp, getfundablebootcamp.com, go to the boot camp, find out, because the second your borrower, you're giving them a solid. And you look like the superhero. You look like somebody, you're walking in with a solution to their problem that actually benefits them in the long term.
Now, could you go back in and then remove the lates? If they brought that $9,000 and pay, would you be able to go back into the credit bureau and say, hey, go ahead and remove these lates and show paid on time?
Yeah, that's the relationship. There's a system called e-Oscars that every reporter, what's called a data furnisher, your servicer is a data furnisher to the bureaus. They have a terminal that, based on certain criteria, you can update it. You would have to talk to your servicer about that. Why have we never had this conversation?
I don't know, man. It's just that we got so much, man.
This is the bomb. That e-Oscars is basically is like an eraser. It has to be on certain terms. You can't say it has to be some sort of clerical error, or there's got to be it's unverifiable, erroneous, or inaccurate. So if your servicer picks one of those three things to calibrate the loan, right? Then you can say, well, it wasn't verifiable because nobody's been here to even record it. I just bought the paper. That might fly by. No, my payment is $660, not $700 a month. That's an inaccurate amount. It's just what your servicer can tell the bureaus about those things. But I'd love to talk to your servicer because that could be a strategic thing that they can offer folks as a servicer to all of your students, right? Mm-hmm. Be able to say, oh, by the way, we have a new feature here. It's called a take care of your brother during COVID. And here are the bullets that go with that thing. If we meet this criteria, we can not just recast the loan, not just make you look fundable, but also perhaps even get rid of the interim negative payment history.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, because then it actually increases the value of your paper.
Absolutely.
Increases the value, because now it looks like it can be a performing loan versus it being a non-performing that just remodified.
Yeah, because modifications, we'll get to those in a minute, but
that's
modifications, modifications don't have the same value as paper as what I call a newly cast loan, or you call a newly cast loan, recasted loan, or a refinance, right? Hey, you're refinancing this loan with me, or you're re-amortizing the loan based on national emergencies, right?
Now, how many months would the borrower need to be paying on time if they didn't? It was like a 1 month blip,
right?
Okay? How many months would they need to pay on time to kind of have that 1 30-day or those 2 30 days drop off?
Yeah, you reclaim 40% of the negative drag of that or those payments within the first 24 months. The next 24-month look back cycle, for a total of 48, you get 70% of the negative drag back. So if you lost 100 points, you're going to get 40 back after 2 years, and a total of 70 points back after 48. The last 3, unless this item is deleted from through a legal audit or otherwise, an accuracy audit, the last $30,000 or 30% is evenly split over the next 3 years, about 10% a year, until it falls off due to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Can't be on your credit report for 7 years.
Okay, good to know. So we talked to the borrower. We made right party contact. We kind of got them back to work on some sort of thing. So because what we're doing, we never do a loan mod right off the bat, because if we did a loan mod within 12 months of buying the note, it becomes a short-term capital gains. It can get expensive that way.
Didn't know that, but I totally get it.
You get it. So say after 12 months, we then modify the loan. So we do a loan modification of interest rate, amounts. What kind of effect will that have on a borrower's?
That all depends on how your servicer is. Is the servicer showing not paid as agreed during this negotiation process? Remember, in 2008, you were there as much as I was there. You had to be late 90 days before any lender would even talk to you about a loan modification. Yeah. Then it would take 6 to plus months to get the loan modification. So by the time you do the loan mod, the old loan has a 6 to 12 month derogatory listing before you start the new loan. And then what it does is a loan modification stays the same loan. All you're just reshaping rate and term and balance. If you're pushing the arrearage to the end of the loan, then you're just modifying the current loan. In my world, fundability, all bad juju. You want to start a new loan because it's easier to delete the derogatories of a closed loan than an open loan, and you don't get to show as much good faith, right? Because there's psychic drag associated with. I mean, I went through it in 2008. I had 8 properties, man. They went sideways and south, every single one of them, and there is psychic drag associated with a current loan. I want to capitalize. I want to capitalize on building a new relationship with my what do you call them? my stakeholder. What do you call they're not tenants. What do you call the
borrowers? Our borrowers.
Okay. So I want to build a new, if I'm new to them, I want to build a new relationship with them. And that's why if you're recasting the loan, you don't have to wait the 12 months. You're literally refinancing in your terms. And the refinance is basically owner carry, right? It's just being reported to the bureaus. So you're getting rid of all that psychic drag of the old loan. You're like, hey, it's you and me. We won't worry about that. It's you and me. Well, let's set something up where we have an opportunity, because ultimately, yeah, I can be the big bad wolf, but let's start fresh and new. Well, that benefits them psychologically and their fundability. Of course, now you get a brand new loan. And if we can't get rid of the Oscars strategy, if we can't get rid of the drogs previously, at least it is an accuracy audit, at least by my team, an accuracy audit. There's 30 to 50% chance we can remove that old loan. You can't do it as well when they're re-reporting every single month. It's just modified the terms. So loan modifications are not my first and favorite, because you're literally keeping all of the negative old energy with that. And we know some of these lenders are just horrible servicer companies. They're just, it's just BS, right? I'd rather start fresh. And if I can do that, then we're back to the previous situation.
Now that's a big thing with loan servicers. Some don't, some like ours, when we use, if a borrower pays 3 months, if they get back on track with a trial payment plan, pay 3 months, we start reporting it as performing again. Where they can still be 6 months behind, but we're giving them, hey, we're performing. It actually reduces our servicing cost from $90 a month down to like $25 a month, but it's reported.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But we start reporting them as performing. Now, question for you: if somebody owes $125,000, but the markets drop, which we're kind of foreseeing,
they're upside down.
Yep, upside down. And we modify the loan to say forgive. We bought the debt at say $50,000. House is worth $100,000. They owed $125,000. 12 months of payments. We recast the loan for market value at $100,000.
Right.
Now we just say, okay, you only owe $100,000 now, not $125,000. We're forgiven $25,000 in debt, which we have to send them a 1098 for.
Right. Yep.
But what does that look like effect-wise on a person's credit?
It's brilliant. Well, first of all, it's brilliant because you're closing down the old loan. So once that loan is done, and it is, again, we're back to the new loan scenario. Now, I would leverage, and I know you teach this, but I would leverage the hell out of that gift of $120 or that $25,000 that I shave it off, and I would base it on good faith. I'll be like, hey, every 6 months of faithful payment, I'll take another $5,000 off of your, or whatever your strategies are, right? But I would say for every positive year, I'm going to reduce this note over and over and over again, or whatever. You're way better at this than I am, but the point is if it's a new loan, then it does not matter what the terms and conditions of the loan are. The fundability part is the amount and their faithfulness in executing the terms. The terms can even change on a dime when it comes to FICO's algorithms and underwriting, future underwriting possibilities for the borrower. None of that matters. So your students and clients have a crap load of options in kind of moving, rearranging the contents of the house, as long as the house stays good looking and can appraise at value, right? Doesn't matter where the furniture is, because that is one of the things that the FICO, the rates and terms, all that is not included in their calculations. It's the amount of the loan, the length of positive payment, and are they being fastidious? Is it being paid on the due date? I would set up with your servicer mandatory auto drafts where I guess they can't be where possible and mandatory at the same time, but just auto drafts, so that those are all benefits you could create with a borrower if you teach them. Send your borrowers to the damn boot camp just so that they can see how much of a superhero you are in hooking them up, right? Not just in the reduction of the rate or in the balance, but in just setting up and protecting their interests, you're showing up as a fiduciary hardcore.
So it would be better to, instead of doing a new loan, because we're not doing a new loan, it's the same loan, but just cutting 25 grand off, maybe reducing the principal by 25 grand in that same scenario would be a better value for them. Now it's the LTVs down below what it was originally originated.
That is correct.
Even though they're at 100% technically LTV, it's basically at 80% of what it was originated.
That is correct. And that looks solid for their profiles. It doesn't matter where the LTV reduction came from, or actually balance to the balance to loan ratio, right? The loan amount's 125. Just because you give them a credit, the renew reported balance is 100 grand. So now they are looking sweet for future fundability, and future lenders will look at that and say, look at the borrower and go, solid. They're only into this loan, whatever it is, 1 year, 2 years, and they're already at 75% balance to loan ratio utilization. They're like, I like these guys. So that's another big win. You as the note holder, you can serve to help your people climb out of a hole, but that benefits you and benefits them.
Definitely. And it boosts they start climbing back up to either, hopefully, that's why I wouldn't really adjust the interest rate that much, where they could then hopefully get qualified after 12, 24 months of on-time payments
and get it out from underneath you.
Yep, exactly.
And that's one of the things, you guys make sure your people, we're working on kind of a self-study program that's fun and easy for you to be able to give to your borrowers. The boot camp is the best thing for your students, Scott, to give to the borrowers.
Right.
Listeners, you guys go to the boot camp so that you know what's going on. And then, hey, for $97, man, give them hook them, your people up, give them a comp ticket, but it's comp if it's only that they mandatorily attend, as kind of borrower education for you as the new owner of the loan. Hey, I'm taking this over. I'm willing to shave this off, move this around, do these things if you attend this borrower education camp. You get them to go there. Now they're going to know how solid of an offer you're giving them and the different strategies that you're in a position to create massive goodwill and change the entire dynamic, because they don't like they wouldn't be where they are if they did not resent paying the last one. There is resentment that builds up on the people who are trying to take your damn home. So let's clean that up and then send them to an educational forum where they can find out, holy hell, this is awesome. And my note holder, my lender, the bomb. This guy, this gal is awesome. And then we change the complete attitude for all of this.
Yeah, I see. I'm having images of sugar plums. I mean, servicers literally working together to notify all the non-performing borrowers, trying to get them to listen, you're in a contract for deed. Let's talk about the things to do, or you've been behind. Hey, here's a credit, not counseling, but maybe a mortgage counseling boot camp for you to figure out some options for you.
Absolutely. And they'll find out what possibilities are there. And then the folks that are carrying the paper, if we've got the note owner and the servicer and the borrower are, they're partnering on this project together, it's a win for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'll keep them entertained.
Yeah, definitely. we may have to bump this episode to full-fledged like Note Night in America Monday night webinar because there's such good stuff.
I'm down. As we're talking about this, I'm like, we've been doing this for 5 years now, and we have never talked about how people. Let's do this on a Monday note night, because this is awesome.
Yeah, we'll do this definitely. So let's move on to the next strategy. So basically, someone can get paying on time. We know that goes good. If we have to modify, it's great. Or trial payment plan, still loan mod. We know how that works there for you. The next step is if somebody can't pay their mortgage, and we talk about assumptions. Can they bring somebody in, a mother, family member, friend, to start paying on time, that we make the new person come in and kind of get qualified as a co-signer on the loan. How does that affect things?
Okay. So good news is that there are 2 or 3 simple things to watch for because pulling this is awesome. Now we're talking from the lender perspective. You as a lender can't count on their score, you guys. You cannot count on their score.
By there, do we mean the new person coming and taking over, or the old person?
Yeah, yes, the new person.
Okay.
Because if you're like, oh yeah, they got a 780 credit score. I'm not gonna. If I were in your shoes as the owner of the note, and I'm looking for somebody to co-sign on this or to backstop it or etc., or even assume it completely, I'm not going to look at their score. I'm going to be looking at their criteria. I'm actually thinking of one of your a half day training to do this with your people, to literally go through the details, because we haven't got time now. Even Note Night in America is not going to give us enough time. But guys, you got to evaluate what is their relationship, not with their credit cards for you. What's their installment loan? What does their car payment looks like? What's the value of the car payment? How much are they in? How long have they held that car payment? Because there's a way, attitude-wise, car payments and revolving accounts, credit cards, etc., have send different messages.
Yeah.
And so I would look at all of their installment history. Make sure that they don't have late pays or anything else. But I would see how they're treating their installment loans, because that's you're giving them an installment loan. You're giving them a mortgage. You would also tell them that it's beneficial to be reported with if they have their own mortgage or it's their first. Hey, do you realize if it's their first mortgage, they haven't got their own home, but they're willing to co-sign on this one? That's an additional 10 to 20 point immediate bump for the first mortgage reporting on their profile, right? And then, and in addition, they're going to be able to create if it looks good, and we could go through what the criteria to look at. If it looks good, then assigning it, or I would make it a co-borrower environment rather than just an assumption, because every positive payment will benefit the current owner of the house, who's likely making the payment or contributing in some way to that payment. So you want to make it a win as much as possible. And there's a whole section on this. Whatever we do, Scott, we got to talk about gifts becoming entitlements, because there's ways that we can remind them gently that I'm doing this because we're building a new relationship, not like I'm doing you a solid every month and now you come to expect it, right? So gift becomes entitlements is vital to this conversation, but you would be able to establish something really valuable by lifting up the one who can't afford it, but by giving them a better shot. Now, if it's a wholesale slaughter, then just foreclose, right? I mean, if it's just a cluster mess, then we'll get into that one. But if you can have a parent, sibling, a guardian, somebody who has the ability to give the borrower a leg up, then there's some great benefit to both parties on their credit.
Yeah, and basically it sounds more like looking at their DTI, making sure their DTI is at a low percentage rate versus the credit score.
Yes.
DTI, to make sure that they can take on that extra installment loan and going from there.
Exactly. Right? Keep under that 35% and lower the better.
Yeah, that's crazy, because we've seen liar loans already starting to pop back up with higher DTIs out there in a crazy fashion. And that was part of the portfolio we looked at recently, was higher, above 50% DTIs, or the income wasn't verified. So the new recalculated DTI was at 60%. That's not a good thing to be at.
How did were those portfolio loans, or were they Fannie Freddie? How did they get
FHA loans? They were FHA loans that they just did not evaluate. They missed something on the underwriting and didn't verify, didn't call, didn't check assets. Somebody screwed up, a loan processor screwed up at some point without checking everything.
Yeah, that's damn. All right. Well, we can help. Yeah, we can definitely help that.
So moving on, let's go back. So basically, we've gone from assumption now. The next phase would be either to be a short sale, or I kind of throw it as a negotiated short payoff on things. So how does that affect somebody?
Define a short payoff.
Where let's say they owe 60 and we agree for them, they cash out their IRA or their 401k to pay us off. So we agreed, say, okay, you owe us 65, we'll take 54 if you can pay us off on that.
So, okay. So a settlement for less than full balance, but it's a lump sum.
Yep.
So each one of those now, of course, that short sale, if we're already out of the old portfolio, right? If FHA, Fannie, Freddie, whatever, if we're already out of that, then the derogatories have ceased because it will have gone into there'll either be, what's the indicator on these folks' credit profiles when you get the paper? Are they in foreclosure? Was it deed in lieu? What was
now deed in lieu would be a different strategy. These are basically, they're already in default. Maybe they haven't gone the foreclosure route. And when we think, especially on the short sale side or a short payoff, we would say, we could see that the property's been listed before or currently listed.
Got it.
And then we would prove this, if it was listed at full value, then we listen, you need to do a short sale.
Right.
If it was vacant, we would do then a deed in lieu and just say, let's just have you sign the property over, provided that there's not a second lien on it that we have to foreclose out.
Got it. Okay. So given that, since the old loan is already done, then a short sale or a short payoff simply means there's going to be no credit reporting whatsoever, because if they made 3 payments in the process of this, those would be reported, but nothing on an installment loan is worth anything to FICO until 6 months have been paid. 24 months is the only meaningful metric. So so that one we just go back to kind of the best we can, the fastest we can, right? What does it take to get them to pay it off? Or what can we do to short sale it and get rid of the property, and we get our money out, right? There's going to be no reporting since it isn't a formal loan yet. It hasn't been listed with the servicer as a I don't know.
No. These are loans that have been with the servicer that we bought the debt at a discount. And when approaching the borrower, we give the borrower the option, like, if you can't make the payments, you can always pay us off, or would be willing to negotiate a short sale.
But this is with their original servicer.
It would have been, but it would be now transferred. The servicing would have now been transferred to our servicer.
Okay. So at that, it is the same loan. It's just been transferred. Okay. I'm just trying to do the math.
Yep.
So you've still got the derogatory listings, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24. You've got the derogatory listings from the previous loan. At the same time, so all those are going to be there. Yeah, you're inheriting the paper. Then the question becomes, as a servicer, what can they do as part of the negotiation for the payoff? Can you reduce the number of derogatory listings? Can they e-Oscars anything about that particular negative notations? But there is no difference in a settled for less than full balance and a short sale. It'll just be registered it'll be the final pre-closure listing of that. If it would have stayed with the original servicer, it just went into foreclosure. It's just that your people, your students, are now the ones who are doing it, right? You're just executing on this with a new servicer. It's going to go into pre-foreclosure, which is what a settlement would be, and so that will just show up. It's like an I-7 installment. I-7. There's I-1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, right? So it would be the I-7, and foreclosed, I believe, is an I-9. So that would be the notation, because it is the same loan. We just have to talk to the servicer of what they can do. Now, your servicer, you say, only reports to TransUnion, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, that's hard. That's beneficial to if somebody can't right the ship, because now it's only negatively reporting on one profile. So the way I would do it is I could optimize 2 bureaus and keep the hit, whether it's 3, 5, 7 years on TransUnion is just taking a bloodbath, but I can optimize the other 2 because that's no longer reporting. So the short sale or settlement is not would not be listed. So you wouldn't get an I-9, you'd be stuck at a I-5 or I-7.
Okay, makes sense there. Now let's say we go the route of, and I'm going to cover this kind of too. Going to foreclosure, we actually go to the foreclosure route, finish the trial, and then, or compare to that to bankruptcy. Let's go to the foreclosure route first and kind of is that going to kill really going to kill their credit for 7 years for the most part?
Yeah, the foreclosure as a notation is going to be the I-9. It is going to be the worst possible outcome. The foreclosure does it stops the reporting process completely, like a bankruptcy would, right? It's like, I went through this process at 6 months to a year, but you now have a stop to that process, right? But if you're still late, if you're negotiating all this time and it goes on for months and years while you're going through this, remember, it's 7 years from the date of 7 years and 6 months from the date of the delinquency that led to the foreclosure. So it's a long haul.
So that could vary though, because in Texas, if it's 90 days to foreclose, that's 90 days or 7 years, 6 months plus the 3 months, versus like in New Jersey, which can be like a 24-month process, 7 years, 6 months plus 24 months of dragging stuff out.
So that's interesting to look at. I didn't know from that perspective. Excuse me. The Fair Credit Reporting Act says that regardless of the debt, it is 7 years and 6 months from the last delinquency that led to the foreclosure. So if it's a 5-year process, it may only be negative for 2 more years because it's from the last delinquency that led to the charge off, foreclosure, otherwise. Now it may be different with on installment. That's something that I need to review, because I know it's true on charge offs and collections, but foreclosures are secured, so it may have a different timetable. But regardless, that is the cessation of the reporting. And so the faster we can make that happen, if that's the direction it's going, guys, the faster you can get your borrowers to that point, the better it's going to be for them. Ultimately, it's a gun to the head, but at least I'm out of my misery.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about this. And they file bankruptcy, and usually it's a Chapter 13. They got to be appointed in a Chapter 7 these days. Let's say Chapter 13 BK. Same things that stop the reporting for that 5 year that they're making payments in their payment plan.
It stops the reporting because it just says included in a bankruptcy. But here's what's messed up on their credit, and the reason why I tell people to do if you're going to do it, I prefer no bankruptcy at all, and there's some great bankruptcy alternatives. But the way to do a bankruptcy is whatever your repayment is, it's 7 years after it's discharged for a 13, and it's 10 years after it's discharged on a 7. So you're looking at a bankruptcy being on for 10 to 13 years, or 10 to 10 if it's a 3-year pay down, because on a Chapter 13, the bankruptcy clock doesn't even start. It's 7 years until it's been discharged with the agreed upon payment by the trustee. So it's gnarly either way, but if it's so, bankruptcy takes over the negative reporting on all 3 bureaus, versus if it's only on 1 bureau with your servicer, then it's better to stay out of bankruptcy, because then that's going to be a 3 bureau reporting process instead of a continuing arduous negotiation on 1 bureau, showing up with continued lates, working on a short sale, 120 days late or 180 days late, and short sale imminent or whatever.
So let me ask you a question. If somebody is with what's going on right now with healthcare and stuff like that, if somebody is filing bankruptcy just against medical bills, and like we said, hey, you can remove the mortgage from the bankruptcy and just keep paid as planned on that. How is that different? How does that affect? I mean, it's still negative that they're showing bankruptcy, but if their mortgage is not part of the bankruptcy, they're still paying as planned.
They're still paying. Then it's going to have the original. If it's not included, if it's been reaffirmed, then they don't have to. There's going to be no negative impact for their mortgage payments, even though their profile is going to have a huge impact because you did a BK. What people do, and why I'm saying bankruptcy alternative, is what most of your listeners may not know, is that the credit bureaus, the credit bureau for the most 2 recent versions of the FICO software don't even count medical collections, you just use this as an example. If there was a massive judgment or something like that, totally understand the process of avoiding the collection. But it is a 10-year hit. And we find that it's a minimum of 5 years before you can get really any kind of unsecured valuable credit. I mean, unsecured revolving accounts, which are essential to looking valuable to business lenders and growing your financial reputation again. You can get a car. You might a Fannie Freddie. Fannie Freddie FHA consider what after 3 years, sometimes 4 years. So depending on your profile. So the BK route is you're trading reporting a BK from reporting a late that's still being worked out over time, depending on how many the servicers, and by and large, you want to, it's really difficult to medical bills being the reason because they're not counted, but people don't know this. So they're like, I have $200,000 in medical bills and they still have a 730 credit score, right? It's like, right. So, and there's a way to navigate, at least my clients and students, there's a way to navigate those conversations with lenders saying, like a mortgage or otherwise, can you please, like most mortgages don't count the medical. So they'll run the software and say, will you please see what my score is without the medical bills in it? And so except some untoward mortgage brokers rely on the ignorance of the borrower, and they just run the score and say, I got to get you a tier 5 loan, even though that in truth they could get a tier 2 with because that they're trying to count the mortgage or the medical. They're trying to count the medical collections when in fact the software or Fannie Freddie isn't, right? So again, there's a landmine you can avoid by just knowing kind of the rules of the game.
Well, that's good. Now thinking back to people, and this is the thing, people at small business owners all across the country, 52% of small businesses are being affected. If you're set up properly where it's the business that's going under and filing bankruptcy and stuff like that, that's where it doesn't affect your personal stuff. That's a whole different ball game as far as affected, right? Yeah.
Prior to 2008, that was true. Now, since automatic underwriting, everything is based on the personal borrower. So they give you a little more latitude. It could be 60 to 90 days late on a business credit card, like a Chase Inc. may not negatively report you to your personal credit profile until it's 90 days late, 60 days late, or even in collections. So there's more, but the second you are that late, whatever your terms of agreement are, you got to make sure you know what you're talking about. It will negatively impact your personal credit. Everything since 2008 there's no such thing as for small businesses, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, there's no such thing as a non-PG loan. Everything is personally guaranteed, every dime. Credit cards, credit lines, business loans, they're all personally guaranteed. So going south on business, south only, they have a little more elbow room, but once you hit that 60 to 90 days, they will begin to report on your business, on your personal credit profile as late or in collections. And a collections is worse than a 30-day late. And so now you kind of like avoid it for a minute. It's like a slingshot. Avoid it for a minute, but when it releases, it's going to hit you in the head. Yeah. So
good times, man. Wow. Well, I learned a lot. I think everybody's learned a lot there from it. We need to do like a half-day event next time we do a virtual workshop.
Especially imagine actually a slide deck with the content, right? The ability to actually what to say, how to this is awesome. Make sure you get me a copy of this recording because I want to debrief myself.
I'll link to you in just a few minutes. But yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's the thing to think about, especially if you're going to be if you're buying, and this is the thing for you guys out there, note investors, this may be something that you want to create. If you're going to do a loan modification or trial payment plan, you require mandatory
education.
Mandatory education, but mandatory when you show up attendance in an event like this. Because you see a lot of that happen. Like, I'll give you an example. I mean, there's things that require, like I was thinking of NACA back in the day. NACA used to require you to go get credit counseling before you got your first mortgage. All right. For a variety of things. If you've ever had a DWI or driving under the influence, you got to go to counseling for that, to go sit through that things and stuff like that. So not quite the same thing, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Showing up and learning and being educated versus being ignorant and trying. And we all know that, well, ignorance is not an excuse.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. Right. And the cool thing is most attendees get kind of amped about it, right? Because, but A, they're listening to a fire hose, but B, they're being empowered. They're like, what do you mean? I do have power. This is awesome. When I feel apathetic is because most of us are don't understand what's happening around us, so we shut down. Right now, we're like, I know exactly what's happening and I can do something about it. And I want to keep this damn house and I want a new loan. And, all of a sudden we're speaking a language that the borrower actually is aligning themselves with the note holder.
Is it hablo español, hablo borrower?
Yeah. Yo hablo borrower. Exactly.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Merrill, when is your next boot camp? It's in October?
Yeah, October 2nd and 3rd. Okay. October 2nd and 3rd will be our next boot camp. Guys, sign up. Come and find out for yourself if you haven't done. If you're already one of my gold or platinum members or a client, we're mutual. You're part of each of our tribes. Come back, get a refresher, find out how this is. And I'm really interested, Scott. And I don't know if it's just 2 or 3 more hours we tack on to an event you already do. I don't know if it's a deeper dive, or I don't know how you do all of your events. But man, having them be able to speak to hablar borrower, teach your note holders how to speak borrower. Teach your borrowers how to speak a lender. That's my end game. That's the whole reason.
You know what? We'll when we finish this up, we'll definitely get on the phone. We can put something together before you're in. I think it'd be good. Definitely.
That would be awesome. That would be a blast.
Yeah. Good stuff.
All right,
man.
sir.
Well, hey, Merrill, thank you as always, bud. Always educational on both sides of the microphone here. And guys, check it out. October 2nd and 3rd, getfundablebootcamp.com. We'll have the link in the show notes and the description. If you're listening to this, as always, give us a thumbs up. If you love the episode, hey, go over, leave me a comment. And then you always check out the Get Fundable podcast as well that Merrill has. We don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah, we're going to be dropping getfundablepodcast.com or Get Fundable Podcast in any of your Stitcher, Apple, any of those. Take a look at the topics. They'll blow your mind. And I'm going to send you over the podcast that we referred to, so that your people can have an idea of just another podcast source to deep dive into what we were talking about. So that's awesome.
Good stuff. All right, guys, go out, take some action, learn how to speak borrower, the translation between borrower and banker, and you'll be a whole lot better off. But we'll see you all at the top, everybody.